Thought we were
There we go.
There we go.
What's that?
underground.
Underground is like that's just an adjective to describe us. It's not in our name. Because eventually the underground hip hop club will become just the mainstream.
We'll sell out.
When that happens, we have to start the underground club.
That's true, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
We will leave.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, everyone,
10
thank you for
songs.
coming to the Wharton Hip Hop Club's Hip Hop 101. So the reason this meeting came about is because Carlos asked me at the end of last semester, he's like, I don't know anything about hip hop. If I could only listen to 10 songs. If I
could learn more.
I thought he said he didn't know anything about music. So.
Okay. Wow. There's an LF talking, so.
So anyways, so this is just kind of a primer for those who might not know a lot about hip hop. A lot of you guys probably do know a fair bit, and this will be redundant, but hopefully you'll find it.
This is for me, basically.
It's for Carlos, yeah. So the disclaimer is that these are not the 10 best songs in hip hop. They're actually just like the 10 songs that punctuate certain moments in hip hop that were important in like the evolution of the art form. And also like there's a lot of violence and misogyny. So take it as an art form. Think of it like watching The Godfather. Anyways.
Fuck the police.
So where did hip hop begin? Hip hop began in the South Bronx. So it was. What's that?
Go ahead.
It did not start in LA. It did start in the South Bronx. So in the 1970s, there was a Jamaican immigrant named Clyde Campbell who came from Jamaica probably like when he was like 5 or 10 years old. But when he came and he brought the whole idea of like the Jamaican sound system to the South Bronx. So when they have parties, they just have these like, huge speakers, a lot of noises, and like just a party that's run by DJs. So Clyde Campbell, known as DJ Kool Herc, is like widely considered the godfather of hip hop, the creator of hip hop. And actually, the way hip hop started is actually through entrepreneurship. His sister wanted new clothes for school, and so she said, "I can sell tickets to you DJing." And so they threw this big party, sold tickets, and so hip hop has a long history of being a business. So what did the Bronx look like? It was probably the worst place on earth. So in I think it was like the 50s or 60s, they built this expressway that ran across the Bronx and essentially cut off the South Bronx from the rest of the Bronx, and it became this really downtrodden, decrepit area. So one of the main themes of hip hop, the way I look at hip hop, is essentially like a look at me culture. I mean, you have a group of people who were horrifically disenfranchised, and so hip hop in all of its forms has actually been a way for people in this area to get noticed because they kind of felt like they'd been cut off from their city and left out. So there are 4 elements of hip hop. There's MCing, DJing, b-boying, and graffiti, and this is the logo for the Wharton Hip Hop Club.
Yeah. Periodic table.
Yeah. So graffiti is essentially spray painting on anything. So it actually started as something really simple like this. So Taki 183 is widely considered the first graffiti artist, and it was really as basic as this. So he would just spray paint this on a building or spray paint it on a subway car. And really all it is, it was a guy from 183rd Street. And what he would do is he essentially say, everybody in the city knew this guy's name because his shit was everywhere. He would spray paint everything, everywhere. But over time, it got a little more, graffiti became a lot more of an art form. So you get subway cars and brick walls painting these like really, it'd usually still be someone's name so that the artist could get known, but as you can see, the level of artistry has definitely stepped up a bit. Graffiti did actually make a splash into like popular art and mainstream art, and but even now it's still like a street form. So this is like Banksy, and there's guys like Banksy out there. So anyone who hasn't seen Exit Through the Gift Shop should. It's a great documentary.
Seen what?
It's a movie called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's kind of unclear whether it's a documentary or a mock documentary.
Okay.
Either about Banksy or
Is it a
by
Michael
Banksy.
Moore film? Or?
No,
Okay.
it's about underground graffiti artists.
Okay.
And he's unknown. His real identity is unknown still, right?
It's still unknown.
Wait,
Yeah.
Banksy's still unknown?
But
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
I thought Banksy was like super popular though.
He's famous.
Yeah, but everyone
Even
knows
though
who
I know who
Banksy
it
is.
is.
It's like Batman.
Exactly.
He might be an accountant.
Just like that.
Hey, we're not accountants.
So that's graffiti. DJing, one of the other of the 4 elements. So the DJ used to be the most important part of hip hop. So if you think of now, there's like DJs and MCs have always had a kind of symbiotic relationship. It used to be the DJs that were the draw. People would always think of the DJ as being like the main show. So what it used to be is the DJ would just be the guy who played music. So they would try and play the most popular music. And then eventually, what happens? You get like b-boys who were dancing, and so it was important for the talent of a DJ was the ability to repeat the break part of a disco song so that b-boys could dance for longer. So this is actually a technique that was invented by Kool Herc, where you essentially get 2 copies of a record, and then spin the break on one, and then once it's over, have the other record queued up to spin the break again, and just switch it over with the mixer. So essentially, you get like the best part of the song played for like a long period of time, like 5 minutes at a time, so that b-boys could dance for longer. So b-boying and breakdancing.
Oh yeah.
Were these the original guys back in the 70s?
Yeah, we looked so much. Carlos and I was so young.
Oh,
back in
you
the
guys?
70s.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's Carlos and me. So this is Carlos.
3 months younger than me. Are you kidding me?
So this is Carlos teaching me how to breakdance at Elena's a month ago. So a lot of the things we have are photos, but like photos don't really do breakdancing justice. So there's a video to go along with this. So the video is a little bit corny. So it's from a TV show called Graffiti Rock, and it has dancers. So like focus more on the dancing than like the production value of the video, because the production value is kind of weird. The spandex is obviously a little bit corny. We can also notice it's the same beat over and over again, but that's what the DJ would do.
Killing me.
So obviously, b-boys didn't usually wear tight red spandex. So that's kind of on the funny side.
Why did you pick that video?
It's actually really hard to find videos of old school breakdancing. I kind of want something that was more from the time. I mean, there's God, what's the show? America's Best Dance Crew is essentially primarily a breakdancing show, but it's a little too modern. It's been yeah, so kind of watching something that's a little more old school because this is about the origins of hip hop. There was another video I had that was more like documentary style, but the dancing wasn't as good. I kind of wanted to show some of like the acrobatic nature of the moves.
It was a sketch. They're dancing.
Not even close. Yeah, this was.
I was doing
This
way-
is just a still photo, but you can only imagine what it was like.
I was in Wave and show was shot eyes.
So the next thing is emceeing. So emceeing is essentially what we're going to be talking about. This is hip hop 101, but it's really rapping 101. So the original MCs were actually the DJs. So when a DJ was running a party, they would essentially do a lot of call and response routines with the crowd. Welcome. So that's just the kind of things like when I say hey, you say ho, like that kind of thing. Hey, welcome.
Hey!
Hello.
I have fake leaves in case anybody wants those. And salad. Sorry.
That's for you. It's okay.
You see. So later on, so DJs would kind of take on minimal MC type roles. Just kind of like speaking over the, as they transition songs. But eventually they became more dedicated MCs, but they were still just kind of there to like run the party. They didn't really do a lot more than what the DJs did. They would just do a lot of like call and response. They'd maybe say like 2 or 3 rhymes, and then let the DJ play the songs so that people could dance. But in the late 70s, MCs started having, there was a kind of a transition of power from DJs to MCs. So people used to think of DJs as like the primary force in hip hop, but then people started paying more attention to the MC. So they kind of became the centerpiece of hip hop music. So how did MCing evolve? So I'm going to use the S-curve of new product adoption to explain. So I'll kind of be switching back and forth between both curves. So I'll be using the S-curve and also just like the bell curve. But obviously the S-curve is cumulative and the bell curve is new people coming in to listen to hip hop. Hey, come on. So we're gonna start with innovators. So like this is like the very early parts of hip hop. So in its nascent form, hip hop by nature is borrowed from other types of music, right? They had to buy a record, and they find a certain part of the song they liked and play it over and over so that people could rhyme over it. So there's 3 main forms of music that people would the DJs would play for MCs to rhyme over: electronica, rock, and disco. So we'll kind of go through an example of each one of those. So the first song we're going to listen to is Planet Rock by Africa Bambaataa. So he's from the South Bronx. He's heavily influenced by Parliament Funkadelic. So you'll see in the video, he just looks very, very weird.
Wait, so who's this guy again?
So his name is Africa Bambaataa. So he's actually the DJ. So the guys who are rapping on the song are actually called the Soul Sonic Force. But this is still the time where people were focused on the DJ. He was like one of the biggest DJs in the South Bronx. And so, and just as an aside from being like a DJ, he was also very involved in the community. And so the South Bronx, there was obviously, because it was such a poor place, a ton of gangs and violence. And so he was instrumental in actually curbing a lot of the violence at the time. So, like I said, so his influence is electronica. He would take a lot of electronica coming out of Europe and kind of cut it in certain ways so that people could rhyme with it.
What year are we talking about?
I think it says 78 or so.
Guess who was born that year?
Old people.
It's a great year.
She's about 2 people.
All right.
3. What year are you, Sean?
80.
Oh fuck.
Aw.
Young kid.
So
I'm not the only one.
things to look for in this. You're going to show a lot of
But
footage
he
of.
I am 80 something.
Carlos is so fixated.
I'm in the 80s too.
Anyway.
In the 80s.
I'm the second
Sorry,
order.
so 78.
Yeah.
Second.
So things to look for is notice like how funky he's dressed. You're gonna see some breakdancing in the video, but it's I mean, you can imagine the 70s, like this is a type of music that people have never heard before. So.
Party people, stereo get funky. Suicide folks, stereo get funky. The Zulu Nation, stereo get funky. Yeah, just hit it.
Oh, what's great?
Just hit
Go down.
That's what you and Carlos are gonna do later.
Just hit it down, just hit it.
Right there.
That vibe just get some funky. Yeah, just hit it.
He's working on the hair.
Yeah, later hip hop references that video and song.
Sean, why are they using all those costumes? Is there any?
So I think that this is an artist who was heavily influenced by Parliament Funkadelic. So you familiar with like George Clinton and that band? It's like I don't know what the.
It's nothing like ethnic or like.
So African Bambaataa was really big on like African pride, like taking pride in the fact, but like I can't really say that any of those costumes look.
No.
That was more
It wasn't
like
Indian.
Native American.
No.
Yeah, so
That was from Spain.
Okay, so
it was from outer space, yeah.
Well, it could be like.
So this started with this Jamaican guy, like in the 70s, right?
Yeah, but that was more about like the idea of like throwing big parties with like music and run by DJ. So it's not like this is influenced by Jamaican music per se.
But I mean, when did it? Why and when did it catch on so much in the color community?
In the Bronx.
Yeah, I mean, there's well, I guess that's part of it, but it's mainly black people what we've seen, right?
Yeah. Right. No, the Bronx is mostly a black neighborhood. So why did it catch on there? Is that the question?
No, that's fine. I mean, I think you just mentioned something African, and I wanted to make the link with Jamaican, but you said that just the Jamaican guy. That's good.
Yeah. No, it just happened to be that like the idea of throwing parties with huge speakers run by a DJ is something that came out of Jamaica, but
which they still do actually.
yeah. But it's not like this is anything necessarily Jamaican about the music.
Also, black communities in the Bronx were like disadvantaged, like kind of separated, and right.
Mm-hmm.
So like hip hop sort of art form to get noticed.
Oh, like broadly outside.
Right.
Yeah. People in Manhattan would exactly like go up to the Bronx for a party, so it was all kind of staying out there.
Oh, you know that? Sorry, just that point you made about DJs being bigger than MCs.
Yeah.
At least right now. You notice that lasted a while because for a long time, Jazzy Jeff was bigger than Will Smith, right? So DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh.
Who was the other guy?
What's the name?
Will Smith.
Will
Yeah.
Smith.
Yeah.
I just heard DJ Jazzy Jeff. So.
Right, talking.
Still true. That's what
Yeah, I mean even Run DMC like they talk about their DJ like in all their songs. There's songs about the DJ like. So anyway, so the other, like I mentioned, so there was 3 forms of music. Electronica was one. The other was kind of like more like rock backing. So using rock cuts from rock songs and drum machines. So Run DMC was kind of like one of the pioneers in that form of music. So they're from Queens, not from the Bronx. The guy on the far right is actually Russell Simmons' brother. Russell Simmons being Nick Lump's best friend, president and co-founder of the
Oh, really?
Hop Club.
Really?
He's been in his apartment.
Wow.
They play songs together.
Of course.
Yeah. I just want to give the hip hop club some street credit.
But is this?
we have contacts. We have contacts in the industry.
Everyone's like,
Yeah.
We're not just some club.
Yeah, we're not that underground.
No. We're at power.
You
we
were
definitely know what we're doing for
Brother.
ourselves.
He's like a support.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, we're going to Russell Simmons' place.
Russell.
Okay.
Your first name, baby.
So it'll the song we're gonna watch is called "Suck MCs." So they're actually MTV wouldn't play rap videos at this point, so it was actually really hard to come across music videos from this period. So actually, this is gonna be a live performance, but because it's gonna come in with the next song. So you saw the way that Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force were dressed. Also note the way that Run DMC is dressed. Okay. This I think is also
Yeah, so what's up? What's your name?
Monique.
My name's Prince Vince. So that's you said me. Who's the freshest DJ MC crew around?
You know who.
Come on. Who?
Jam Master Jack.
Run DMC. Word.
So I said this rhyme I'm about to say. The rhyme was that Jam Master J took a test to become an MC. And all of a sudden came amazing me. So Larry put me inside. Scat the lack is either gonna go wrong. We never came back. And they cut the record down to the bone. And now they got me rocking on the microphone. And then we're talking on the grass. And tears and light. Champagne carry on. And bubble wax. And see I got the light that I need. And you sucker MCs. To our feet. So take back, move back, get the heart. In the world, they run on ever like going to like a party, you know, people are staying. Rock on the mic and make the girl wanna dance. Fly like a dog, and come from up above. I'm rocking on this mic and you can call me Run Love. Yo, G, now I don't seem to know, but won't you tell me, what's my name? Run Love. I'm a big long caddy, not like it's a bill. Written right on the side and reach just the grill. So you can see me, keep the girl. Move a step aside, there ain't enough room to fit you all in my right song. First come, first serve faces. Do it now, girl, take it to the death places. One of a kind, for your people delight, and for your sucker MCs. Take it, stay right, because you're right on your life. On your way, you walk around town like a hoop of a night. On the And everybody know what you meant to. Ha! 1, 2, and we go 1, 2, 3. 3 to 2, 1. My man DMC, my name DJ Run. Do it in the place with the highs in the face. Suck to Sucker MC, this bad face clown. $5 point, it's $1 million man. You the sucker MC, and you're my fan. You try to fight mine, around the mind. You the sucker MC, in a bad top line. Coming from the blackest part of town. Try it around on what you can. Get down, even though you're even. You're bird banana, you get the sucker MC. This bad face clown to DMC, and if they're ready, the people got to say, you know they kinda think that I'm going to fuck dead. I'm DMC, in the place to be. I go to St. John's University. And since kindergarten, I applied for knowledge. And at the 12th grade, I went straight to D. I'm light skinned from Hollis Creek. And I love eating great and walking beef. I dress to kill, I love the style. I'm an MC, you know who work your wild. Say I got good credit in every regard. Got my name, not numbers, I'm a credit card. I go uptown, come back home before we myself with my microphone. All my rhymes are speak alike. So here's another one for y'all to write. When I rhyme, I never quit. And if I gotta do rhyme, I'll just say it. Cause it takes a lot to entertain. And sucker MCs can't think of pain. You can't rap a party with the hip and hop. You gotta let them know you'll never stop. You rhyme Saturday, a lot of spin. You gotta know when to start. Let me hear you, man.
Right, there's a little more of that. They actually end up like battling another MC crew after that, but it's we're not gonna watch that.
Do you guys understand everything they say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot more than current rap.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
I
say
got
the words much
not
more
even
clearly.
half of it.
The
Yeah.
enunciate.
Yeah. I mean also like the rhyming, the way the rhymes are built are less like they're
Like,
usually
how
very
rap is
simple
built, yeah.
back here, and so modern rap is a lot more.
Cursing.
It's not the cursing, it's just that it's more complex, like the structure of the rhymes. So this is like, I mean, it's probably like ABAB here, right? And so,
It looked a bit slower, yeah, like.
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, there's an evolution.
And their clothes, you were saying that.
So the importance of their clothes is actually kind of comes up in the next slide. So the Rappers Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang was pretty much the song that brought out hip hop to a broad audience. So if you remember what Africa Bambaataa looked like and what Run DMC looked like, and compare them to what Sugar Hill Gang looked like, you can kind of see why these guys were the ones who became, like, their record went gold in the U.S. because they're a very non-threatening group of guys. I mean, this is not three black guys that are going to scare a white audience. So I mean, that's always been one of the important things in hip hop is like how can you take what is essentially a black art form and present it to a white audience in a format that they'll accept. So that's kind of what Sugar Hill Gang is. Like they're very kind of boiled down. They're actually not. They weren't even like a rap group that got found. They're kind of like a boy band. So there was a woman, her name was Sylvia Robinson, who ran a record label called the Sugar Hill Records. Sugar Hill is a neighborhood in I think it's the Bronx or Harlem. I can't remember. But she was like, she realized that hip hop was becoming a big thing. Was like, I want to get on this. I want to make some money off of it. So she put three of these guys together. I think one of them was working at a pizza parlor at the time. They're not like the best MCs, but they took a cut of a song from Chic's Good Times and rapped over that, and it's a really, really catchy song. People love dancing to it, and so it blew up and became probably like, it was like the song that introduced hip hop to most people in the U.S.
What year is this?
This is, I think, 79. Also, you know, the original song was actually 14 minutes and 16 seconds long. So it's an epic song.
Wait, you can talk
Yes.
us a bit about the theme, the lyrics, what they sing about? What?
So like a lot, actually, it's not that different from, so Sucker MCs is essentially, it's a lot of braggadocio, is that the right word?
Yes.
We're essentially saying like, I'm awesome, I'm better than you. That's kind of what a lot of this is. Just talk about what good rhymers they are and how good looking they are. Like I mentioned earlier, like hip hop is a very much like look at me,
I'm awesome.
art form, and that's the lyrics reflect that. So this is also this is a live performance because they didn't really make music videos. Right? Yeah.
Were they successful after this song? 'Cause
No.
That's the only thing I heard.
So they had one song called Apache, one song called Eighth Wonder, that didn't even come close to being successful. So it was really, these are
One hit wonder?
definitely one hit wonder. Yeah. But this is like a very super catchy song, so you can see why this song got big.
Steep as any ocean.
That's alright.
This is what we need to tell us. Are you supposed to go?
The Science of Snapshot, only from Progressive.